Welcome to First United Church if you haven't been here before. Friends of Human Rights was the organization that first met right here in this room, and that's when we were supporting Sammy and trying to figure out what to do about Sammy's case. And then we've gone on, and there's a lot of cases we've found from our travels around the country. And in 2010, Friends of Human Rights became a founding member of the National Coalition to Protect Civil Freedoms. So if you haven't been to that website, I hope you go there and see. So I put those out because those are on a website, and there are more of them there. And there are a lot of cases like this. And I wanted to tell you about them because a lot of people still think, well, if they're charged with terrorism, the government thinks they might be terrorists, and probably some of them are terrorists. But we have just not found any of them to be terrorists. So that's just totally wrong. Nobody's done anything. And this is another case like that. And, Fred and Ann and I all attended that trial on occasions. And Fred and I were there the day there were 6 young kids in this case that are going to prison for a lot of years, and none of them did anything other than to listen to the older man who also didn't do anything, but he talked about it. And so that's pretty much all we did. And we were there the day the boy's sons testified, and they said, no, he didn't do that. No, we didn't do about that. No, we didn't do about that. No, I said, no evidence against it. He got convicted anyway and sentenced to 31 years. And said he's one case of a lot of these things. So that's what's important to know, that it's not just, we need to be speaking up. We've been sort of, just like when Sammy was, if you remember when Sammy got indicted, some people, a very small percentage of people around here that spoke up. And I still think today if we had, I think none of this would have happened. I really believe that, because there should have been outrage all around here. And we have found from the travels, it's not meanness on the part of the American people, it's because of lack of information. Not Layla Sue, the NCPCF, and we're in Lansing, Michigan, a year and a half ago. And she's a very admirable person. She's been speaking for her son against all.
My name is Layla Yagi, and I'm the mother of Ziad Yagi and Ibrahim. This is in Egypt. That's a trip he took in Egypt. And after he came back, after 2 years of him coming back, the FBI arrested him. He was only 19 here, so they waited until he became 21. Right? And that's his friend he arrested too, and they're both in Coleman, Florida. And my son is in the SHU, and he got 31.5 years, and his friend Omar got 15 years because his father had more money. So it's not about right or wrong, because they're charged with the same exact charges. If you have more money, then you get more slack. I just want to tell you a little bit about my son's character. When he was 9, we went to the beach in North Carolina. We're from Raleigh, North Carolina. And he held a fish in his hand. Apparently that fish was dead. He cried over that fish for 3 days because it died. He thought that he is the one who killed it. And just before his arrest, just one day before his arrest, there was some ants on the kitchen sink. And I got the ant spray and sprayed them. And he said, you should have left them alone. Why did you kill the ants? Okay. The same day he got arrested, he was marinating chicken for me and wanted to surprise me and cook a dinner for me. And he cleaned up the kitchen. And he went to take a swim at the pool in our apartment complex. And a whole SWAT team came over. Okay, and they closed the road. And this is just all for the media to portray always the Muslims as if they're terrorists. So they want to brainwash people. So they came, and my son was swimming in the pool, and they surrounded the pool, and they had guns drawn at my son, and they actually shot him because he didn't know why he's being arrested. And I heard from other people that he was humiliated while they arrested him. Basically, this whole story started that my son knew a guy. His name is Daniel Patrick Boyd. He's a white American Muslim. He was speaking against the wars in Afghanistan and in Iraq. So that drew the FBI's attention. They hate anybody who speaks against divorce. Okay? My son knew that guy for a very, very short while and really didn't interact with him. But they wanted my son to say something against this guy, and my son didn't know what they wanted him to say. So my son and his friend Omar were harassed by the FBI. So my son really, he was in Texas before he even came. We were from Raleigh, but then he went, when he was around 16, he went to Texas. He came back when he was around 18, and that's when he met Boyd. And about a month after he met Boyd, he went to Jordan, because that's where we come from. We're Jordanian Americans. My father is Palestinian, Jordanian American, and my mom's a white American, so we go back and forth. We have homes in Jordan from both sides of the family, from my father's side and from my son's father's side. So my son went when he was 18 to learn Arabic and to get married, because it's the norm in our society to get married when we're young, so we won't, do anything immoral. So he went over there, he met with a potential bride. It didn't really work out because she did not speak any English, she did not speak any Arabic, so they figured that they can't communicate. He came back and spent another year with me, and then went back when he was 19 with his friend Omar, who's from Egypt, his family's from Egypt, and this picture's in Egypt. And he was also trying to get married. So they spent about a week in Jordan, and then they spent about a month in Egypt. They went to the beach over there. You could see the pictures of my son and Omar, because this apartment is at the beach. It faces the beach. You could see them at the beach. And nothing illegal happened. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. They did not harm anybody. Okay? And when they came back, they were harassed by the FBI, and they wanted them to say something against Boyd. And they did not know what they wanted the FBI to hear. So they kept saying, we don't know what you want from us. They followed them for 2 years. Everything became that they were training for jihad, like just going to kickboxing, anything normal, just, their age would do. And then after that, when they arrested them, of course, that's on July 27th of 09, that there was a SWAT team. So, of course, my son calls me from jail, and I come home. First of all, I was helping this old lady run her errands. I come home and I find my son's cell phone on the computer table, and I get really worried. I'm like, what's going on here? Where's my son? And then the same old lady calls me, and she tells me, have you heard the news? And I said, no. She said, your son's been arrested. And I thought, because she's older, that she's hallucinating. And she said, if you don't believe me, call Omar's dad. So I called him, and he was crying on the phone, and he said, yes. And honestly, I just started jumping up and down, because this is a big charge, when you hear Guantanamo and the charges that you have against these people, and you're wondering why are these charges, against us now. So I started running up and down the stairs and screaming and crying, and I kept on screaming and crying all throughout the night until I probably dozed off for half an hour, woke up in the morning, it's a nightmare. The FBI come, knock on my door, and tell me I'm bringing your son's belongings. And I asked the guy, why is he doing this to us? And he tells me that they want to put so much pressure on my son and his friend, and if they do, then there's some kind of piece of the puzzle missing, and that somehow they'll find out that missing piece of the puzzle. There's that something my son knows about this guy, and if they put so much pressure on him, then eventually my son will speak up. And of course my son didn't want to lie or do anything immoral, so they put more and more pressure on him, and they put a lot of pressure on all the group. And ironically, people in the group didn't even know each other, but yet they're conspiring, to kill a million people. So my son was in pre-trial solitary confinement, and he was mistreated, of course, by the COs, because this way they think if they keep on putting so much pressure on my son, that he's going to take the plea and, testify against the other people in the group. So my son said he's not going to do anything immoral. He's not going to lie. He's not going to harm anybody. And, so they got upset with him, of course, because of that. Then, of course, the trial comes. The trial is held like 2.5 hours away from where we live to make it harder on us and harder on our community to support us. And also so the jury wouldn't be from from my son's peers. So really, the judge handpicked the jury, and even the questionnaire, like how everything is set up, to make us fail and portray Muslims as terrorists. The questionnaire was, do you have any family members who died in September 11? And they kept on repeating the same question over and over again to kind of brainwash the jury. And of course, most of the jury were senior citizens, and most of them were white, and most of them had military members or family members in the military. So all that combined together, plus the media, of course, and how it portrays Muslim people, already predestined us, to not win the trial, to be convicted. So we were actually convicted way before we even went to trial, and the media and all of that. So then at the trial, of course, they had like 700 hours of tape recordings because they had sent informants on that guy Boyd. And the tape recordings were so unclear that you cannot even make out what these people were saying. And the prosecutors, they handed out transcripts to the jury, telling them, since you can't hear what's going on the tape, this is what it's saying, This is what the tape is saying. So if the guy's saying, for instance, do you like pizza? And the other guy says yes, and then the prosecutors say, do you like jihad? And then that one is saying yes, so look at the difference. And people don't get that. Of course, my son was not, or his friend were not on any of the tapes, on none of them. So we said, okay, we're going to probably win the trial, being optimistic there. But the prosecutors did a really, really good job of convincing the jury. They got in material that was not related to my son. They got in people, like videotapes of people doing violent acts like beheading or killing with wearing black masks, that's portraying how Muslim people are. They talked about the bombings, the suicide bombings. They got a guy named Evan Coleman, who's supposed to be an expert about how Muslim people are, and said that they tend to think in a certain way, the extremists, and they tend to think in a certain way, and somehow and sometime in an uncertain future, they would do some kind of act of terrorism. So all that combined together, and the prosecutors bringing up my son's picture and saying United States versus Yagi, And then not just that, they brought in Boyd on some guns, and these guns were all legal, but they brought them in court and they showed each gun to the jury. And we said, okay, maybe the jury would have some kind of conscience, but of course no. So they convicted my son. And then everybody started saying, okay, because the ones who took the plea deal were the Boyds, because they were also pressured, and they got a good deal out of that. A lot of their charges were dropped, and their kids would get out in no time. So we said, well, since, they got sentenced to 4 and 5 years or 5 and 6 years, and they'll be out in no time, then maybe we have a chance, in the sentencing that they wouldn't give my son such a harsh sentence. But then at the sentencing, even though the Boyds all said there was no conspiracy going on between them and my son, there was no plan, nothing going on, and nothing illegal happened, the judge decided to give my son 31.5 years, okay, and give his friend 15 years because one of the charges were dropped because he had a better lawyer than my son. This is our story. We're on Facebook. under Layla Yagi, and please support Ziad Yagi. I also have a website for my son. It's called www.freeziadyagi.info. And I could tell you about his conditions now. He's in Coleman, Florida. He's in the SHU. Is short for Special Housing Unit. It's basically like underground. It's designed to make you lose your mind. They're pretty much upset on my son because they wanted him to take the plea and testify falsely against the others. And he kept telling me, I'm not going to lie. And no matter how much they pressured him, he's not going to lie. He said they even came to him again to lie against people that he does not even know. So the better off you are is if you lie and take the plea deal, then you're on the government's good side. If you don't, then you're going to be punished. And now they're saying they're going to move my son to Colorado, which is one of the worst places or prisons in the United States. And I'm only allowed to hear his voice once a month, and he's only allowed, I think, every 2 days to get out of his cell, which is as small as your bathroom, an hour a day, an hour every 2 days, I think. And I'm going to read a poem that I wrote for my son. I express myself better with poems. Okay, it's called All Throughout the Night. Does it feel like no one cares? Down in a grave cell buried alive, between cold, barren walls, lying on a bed made from cement, staring at the ceiling. Does it feel like no one cares? Staring wide-eyed. Time does not seem to go by. Day after day, night after night. Same thing. Nothing seems to change. Does it feel like no one cares? While the world turns around, while they walk between the sifted sand on the endless beach, feeling the rays of the sun, caressing their barren necks, observing the beauty of the universe. All alone in your cell, not hearing a sound except your breath, waiting for someone's mercy, waiting for the American Constitution to be applied. Does it feel like no one cares? Like the moon when it abandons the desolate night, like the stars when they disappear after a glimpse of dawn, like the trees when they brush their leaves, shaking them off with disgust. Does it feel like the entire humanity has abandoned you, turned their backs on you, like when they bury their dead? Does it seem like cruelty is at its highest? Does it feel like sadists control your world? Does it seem like when you sleep, you dream of a better world, paradise with angels around you, or maybe you splashing in the cool beach with no care? Is it the American dream, or is it only applied to the rich? I call you throughout the night, hoping my spirit will touch yours, a long for your smiling face. Let us pray throughout the night, for the selfish and the greedy to wake up, for the rich to stop robbing the poor. Do you want to wipe my tears while I wipe yours? I'm waiting for you, my son, all throughout the night. Thank you, guys. And I thank Mel and Fred always for being there for me. If it wasn't for them, I mean, I don't know what I'll do. The best people in the world.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to be here Monday?
No, I have to go.
You have to go back. I was going to say if you could meet our vice president and presidential candidates and the Poor People's March at 3 o'clock on Monday out of Romneyville. And it would be awesome if you could. But I will try. My name is Jennifer Sullivan. I'm a co-chair of the Green Party of Florida. And I will get the word out to them. And you have our support.
Thank you.
We understand the situation, and that's what we've been. We hope that people don't vote corporate and don't vote military-industrial complex and vote for the Green Party. But I wanted to stop here and get the information. I heard this yesterday, and I'm going to get the word out.
Thank
This
you.
is an atrocity. This is, you know, to be a young Muslim man in this country right now is very dangerous. And as a mother, it just makes me weep.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How often are you able to see him?
Well, because they moved him to Florida, it's like really hard for me to come over here. So I'm gonna see him tomorrow, hopefully, but I'm pretty nervous about that. I'm kind of a wreck, you know. It's very hard for me to see him behind bars.
Pressure your representatives to support that bill, to require them to go back and look at some of these cases, because they're, you know, and the other thing, if you ever, any trials coming up, go to them, and then report what you see, because you see this, because for one thing, there's no crime, they're not accused of anything, there's no violence, there's no nothing, they didn't do anything, and then for another thing, there's no evidence, and but the public doesn't know that, because they need the, you know, they get the opening statement by the government, and they get the closing statement and sentencing, that's all you see.
And then they see terrorists.
Yeah,
Terrorism,
terrorism,
SP, yeah.
opening, closing, and then,
Right.
and that's all you see.
If there's a trial, then you can go to it, and if you can control yourself there. I've been to some of these trials, and you sit there, you're just waiting for that Perry Mason moment to come up, and it never does. And you have to hold yourself down because you want to jump up and tell the judge, why are you allowing this to happen? You know, I mean, we saw in the trial of her son, the judge allowed the guns to be brought in. A table full of weapons and ammunition that Daniel Boyd had. There was no link to Ziad or the defendants to these weapons. They said they didn't know anything about the weapons. The prosecution agreed that they had no evidence to show that the kids knew anything about these weapons. Yet the judge allowed them to. Yeah, in Dr. Larian's case, when they blew up the bus and they burned it to the Heartline bus to try to scare people, in that case the judge didn't allow that evidence in. But in this case, they allowed it in. You know, and to scare the jury. And you wanted to jump up and say, why are you doing this? They allowed an expert witness to come in and tell the jury that young Muslim men of Arab descent basically can't be trusted. They can't control themselves. They're going to commit some violent act at some point. And why would a judge allow somebody to come in and say that? I mean, we were used to seeing this kind of thing years ago when we hear about like a black man being accused of raping a white woman in Selma, Alabama, and they bring somebody in talking about how young black males can't control themselves and look at their religion, they dance and sing in church and stuff, and look at whatever, and juries would convict people on that. But it's even worse now because they don't even need a crime. You know, the National Defense Authorization Act and the Patriot Act, now it's like if a black man is just having lunch with a white woman, that's enough to put him in jail because we know how black people are. They can't control themselves, you know.
Thinking of having
Or just thinking about it. Or if he offers to pay for the lunch, well, that's code word for I want to rape you. You know, we laughed at these juries in backwater places in the South for how could they convict? So obvious. But now this is national. Now this is happening to young and older Muslims, and everybody's buying into this bigotry, into this, and that's that's the way they are. So there's no evidence, but where's the outrage? I get so